अदिति आप अदिति आप जूम से अपने आप को म्यूट करो। ये participant window जो है ये अदिति बाकी yes yes. No.
Any others to add when you talk about it? As we know, we are no longer thinking of post COVID. It's all about a COVID world. Most of our assumptions about our customers are changing. Our understanding of our customers is changing. In short, our value chains, which some call as fulfillment chains, are mutating. Peter Drucker said the best way to predict the future is to create it. This has never been more relevant. With these three thoughts, and I'm sure that there will be many more thoughts and more significant thoughts, I invite my colleague, Deborshi Chaki, to introduce the thought leaders of today. Over to you, Deborshi.
Hey, Deborshi, I think you are on mute, so you can't hear me.
Thank you, Vinay. Joining us live this evening are some of India's best known names from the e-commerce industry, each one of them an expert in their own right. In the panel, we have today Mr. Hari Menon, co-founder and CEO of Big Basket, one of India's largest online grocery platforms. We have Mr. Mohit Tandon, co-founder of Delivery, again one of India's largest e-commerce focused logistic players. Ms. Meena Ganesh, CEO and MD of Portia Medical. She has also founded and backed many well-known e-commerce ventures, among other businesses that she has founded. And Mr. Amar Nagaram, who is the CEO of Myntra, one of India's leading online fashion stores. But before we go to a stellar panel today, Let us first listen to Amit Agarwal, who's the country head of Amazon India, who spoke to us exclusively on the pivots which are at play as part of Amazon's India strategy in these challenging times.
Hi Amit, welcome to Mint's Pivot or Perish campaign, which looks at how India Inc. is rethinking itself. Our focus today is e-commerce, and with me is my co-host Anil Padmanabhan. Let me start the session by asking you something that your boss, Jeff Bezos, keeps talking about. When something bad happens, let it define you, destroy you, or strengthen you. In many ways, it echoes Mint's Pivot or Perish campaign, which is you pivot, you perish, or you empower yourself. How would you look at it in the context of 2020 and thereafter?
Well, I think first of all, thanks for having me, and I hope all of you are safe and healthy out there. These are really unprecedented times for all of us, and I appreciate having the chance to talk to you guys. I think of this code in many different ways. Personally, I think about it for myself, for my family, for Amazon, for my employees. We talk about it often. How this is a chance for us. We feel incredibly grateful in some sense and very responsible that we have a big role to play as Amazon and e-commerce in this world of social distancing. And even later, I think the way we do our job, the way we earn trust of our customers, of our selling partners, of justice, of citizens and nation is going to go a long way in shaping how Amazon is going to be in the post-COVID world.
Hey, Amit, if I can jump in, just you made a great point about how consumer behavior is poised to change because trust will be a key metric of this new behavior. So, how do you, because you're an e-commerce business, how do you look at it? Because in many ways, your customer is not visible to you, just like you are not visible to the customer. So how do you build this element of trust over a platform like e-commerce?
I think trust is a very interesting thing, and again, I'm probably being more philosophical. It's not just e-commerce. With anything, you earn trust, and you earn trust when you do the right thing, even when no one is watching you. It's very easy to do the right thing when people are watching you. We feel that we make promises to our customers, and we keep promises, and that's how customers trust us. We keep them in every single transaction that we have with them, with every engagement we have with them. For example, simple things on Amazon. If you place something in your cart and the price of it reduces, we actually put a message of it saying that, look, the price of this has fallen down, and maybe the seller is just going to send you the balance money back to you because you placed an order for this item yesterday. Or if you just go on Amazon and let's say you've shopped for an item and you placed an order yesterday and you happen to come to the same page, we actually have a small message at the top which says, you've already purchased this item. A different company might like the idea that you're going to buy that item again in accident. We think that saving that trouble for you will go a long way to earn your trust. You can still place the order, but maybe you're just there by accident. So I think these are small actions when customer is not really expecting that from you. You do the small things, and then there are bigger things. You make promises that you're going to deliver the item on a certain date, and you make sure that happens. And we miss the promise. We actually make it a very important exercise within the company to drive a root cause, find what went wrong, fix that so that it never happens again. I think in the post-COVID world, customers are going to look for that trust, the trust of safety, the trust of having the items that they need delivered to them, making sure that we hold ourselves to the promises that we make. Those will be very, very important.
Amit, one of the focal areas of Amazon, and you have been talking about it, is MSMEs or the small enterprises that make up your ecosystem. How has your strategy or your program to scale them up changed in the world that we face now, which is the post-COVID world? Are you going to speed up the whole idea of creating this ecosystem? Are you going to give them more assistance? Are you going to re-strategize? What is it that you're going to do?
So the strategy has always been very focused on things that matter to customers, and we know that customers care about vast selection of products, getting great value on them, and getting it delivered fast and reliably. And the way we make this happen is by providing tools to empower hundreds and thousands of and millions globally of selling partners, as we call them, so that they can offer anything that the customer wants. They can reduce cost of operations by using our technology and offer great value, and use our logistics infrastructure to deliver it fast and reliably. That's kind of the core part of our business model. So if you think about the post-COVID world, our core strategy of selection, price, and convenience is more relevant than ever before. Our core strategy of empowering selling partners to serve customers from the safety of their home is more relevant than ever before. So I would say that our strategy remains the same. I think the one nuance that I would probably call out that this event or this crisis has brought to the fore is we have more than 6 lakh sellers on the Amazon marketplace. And if you went ahead and asked them how do they use Amazon, I would bet that most of them use Amazon to expand their reach. So they want to reach out to customers they cannot reach today in their catchment, either regionally, nationally, or globally. I think with this crisis, they would want to use us to reach their customers even locally. Just because of social distancing, footfalls will have to be supplemented with an online presence. And that is one of the reasons why we accelerated one of the products we have been working on for a while. We had about 5,000 sellers in pilot, which we call local shops on Amazon. And that gives you tools that are fine-tuned for allowing a seller to service customers that otherwise would have walked into the store. So it allows them to both serve in their store and to serve on Amazon. So I would point that out as an example of a more recent innovation to adjust our strategy a little bit, but the core element of the strategy remains the same.
Amit, if I can just follow up, the space that you talked of, the 6 lakh vendors that you mentioned, they are exactly the same people who have got squeezed, a sample of the people who got squeezed because of the demand that has disappeared from the economy after the shutdown. So how has Amazon dealt with this family of vendors, as it were? How have you worked to kind of stabilize them and kind of hold them in there till the crisis abates, or now that the lockdown is being wound down?
Yeah, I think it is very, very hard to imagine what they have been going through. Just being completely paused, disrupted for 50 plus days is very hard on any small business. I think I would say the first segment of actions were very much in order to make sure that we reduce the worry that they have. So, many of them have products in warehouses or somewhere in the network. We wanted to make sure that they're not worried about cancellation fees. They're not worried about storage fees. We're not worried about claims on their account because they haven't been able to deliver the product. So just the basics so that we remove those worries, trying to make sure that working capital is accessible to them. When they were able to start, we were in constant touch with our selling partners. And I'm really impressed the support that we got from them, appreciating why this is important for the nation, why they need to stand on the sidelines for a little bit while we keep our citizens safe, get the essentials to them. And the people who were dealing with essentials were able to jumpstart their operations and start serving them because the lockdown allowed Amazon to provide essential products to customers. Now that the lockdown has given the much needed relief so that they can serve all products, we've done a few things. We have reduced their fees by 50% for a period of time so that they can actually get relief for a longer period, and while they get their business back into shape. We've changed some of our policies, like disbursement policies, to be daily disbursements, because we don't want their working capital to be held for any longer than a day, even though their products may not have reached yet. So we are trying to improve the cycle of capital rotation for them so that the working capital is taken care of. We started picking from all their stores, from their warehouses. So we actually hired thousands of seasonal workers to add more capacity dealing with some of the labor issues that we had, to get them started so that they do not have to wait for fully productive capacity to be there in place. So I think these are some of the examples of actions that we have taken. I think at the end of the day, sellers care about getting sales and getting their revenues back on track. And I'm very, very excited. When I just look at the first 2 days, we are already seeing anywhere from 50 to 100% greater demand than pre-COVID. So clearly there is significant pent-up demand. Clearly customers are looking to buy products that...
Amit, if you look at the whole ecosystem that is evolving now, everyone's talking about the new normal. So asking a more larger macro question beyond just your line of business, how do you see this new normal play out for a country like India, where we have a lot of issues relating to our ability to deliver hygiene, deliver safety, and all these related aspects? So how do you see as a larger, big picture in this scenario?
So it is unprecedented for every nation out there. And I think for India, it gets very complex very quickly. I mean, we have a very high density of people. As you said, it's a very vast country of many different cohorts of population, and trying to get a singular message of safety, best practices out there implemented consistently is not easy. And I'm pretty impressed by some of the discipline that has been shown by all the citizens. But at the same time, we are also hearing about all the side effects of that, and it's a very hard balance to make, keeping lives safe and retaining livelihoods and retaining our economy. So it's a very tough spot. It's hard to figure it out. But if I just take a bigger picture view, you have got to feel optimistic that we will come out stronger. You've got to feel positive that at the end of this, we will probably as a society be a lot more responsible, kind, grateful, more resilient. And we have shown this in the past. So I think, I draw a lot of optimism from that. But right now, our topmost priority should be saving lives and saving livelihoods. I think again, sort of just bringing that big picture down to the area that I am involved in, I do feel e-commerce and Amazon has a role to play, a very important role to play, to both keep lives safe by meeting needs of customers at home and to jumpstart livelihoods, because it's the safest way that any business of any size in the nation can reach out to customers while adhering to the guidelines of safety and social distancing. And by the way, as we look at this, I think there's a lot of opportunities that are going to be created. We already are talking about healthcare more than we have before. As we think about just manufacturing, I think India will benefit quite a bit in the long run as it tries to position itself as a very viable alternative for the world. And again, as Amazon, we have a product called Global Selling that precisely targets manufacturers in India who intend to take their products global. So we're very excited about that opportunity. And there would be a lot of innovation that could happen in the progress, in terms of how people think about brands and products and new services. So I'm very optimistic. I think we have to be patient and see this through. But it is a tough situation, and it will require collective action.
Amit, here's a question that I keep asking myself, and I think I should ask you because both Jeff and you have been saying this. To innovate is to fail, and to fail is to innovate. Uh, how would that apply in the current times that we are facing? Because unless you have a contrarian in the system, not just an innovator, you can't test a system, you can't test a business model. So, how do you create the room for such creativity, which is a contrarian creativity, to flourish? And do you see that happening in the present times?
I think it's a lot about the culture that you have in your organization. It's kind of that's where you're going, and people need to feel comfortable with the idea of being misunderstood. When you think about innovation, there are lots of different pieces that come together. You need to be very obsessed with your customers, because that allows your innovation to have a real adoption. In my mind, innovation is just an idea until a customer adopts it. So, working backwards from customers matters. You need to have a high degree of experimentation. So you need to figure out how, whether it's the nation or the organization or whatever you're doing, how do you reduce the cost of experimentation? Ideas cannot take massive efforts to experiment, otherwise you won't be able to fail quite a bit. At the same time, many of those experiments would fail, because an experiment is really an experiment because you don't know the outcome. You can't really try otherwise. So you need to have a culture where it is perfectly normal for people to fail and be misunderstood, and that failure actually teach you things that you could learn from. We will come out stronger in areas such as healthcare that are really important for the growth of this country, manufacturing, healthcare, and so on. So I'm very optimistic that if you take a really long-term point of view, there would be many experiments that would happen as we kind of get ourselves adjusted to this normal. Many of them will fail, many of them would succeed. We need to think long term. We should be okay with failure as a society right now, and innovation would thrive during this period. I think we were talking about a cohort of small businesses. I think they have a big choice in front of them. This is the time to embrace technology. This is the time to not get worried about access points of offline or online. This is the time to ask yourself, how do I serve my customers? Customers don't really care where your selection is available. They just want you to provide great selection, great value, and great convenience. And they would access you wherever you are. So I think these are the kinds of innovations that would happen.
Amit, one last question before we conclude. And upfront, let me thank you for joining the main campaign and giving your views and enriching the campaign that we have triggered off in the hope of finding better solutions for India Inc. So before we conclude, here's the question. That when I started and spoke about Jeff Bezos and the idea of defining yourself or strengthening yourself or destroying yourself, are defining yourself or redefining yourself and strengthening yourself two complementary ideas, or they are opposites? You can only strengthen your core, but to redefine you need to think of something different altogether. Would you like to shed light on that?
Yeah, I think we talked about innovation. Many of the things that we talk about, I mean, just as society, right? I mean, we could just redefine ourselves as a society in how we think about respect and gratefulness, as an example. I mean, even the last 55 days of shutdown, I'm sure all of us have probably asked ourselves, do we really need to consume so much? And what's the right responsible consumption? How could we help other people? So I think just as human beings, there's a lot of things that we might be thinking about that would redefine who we are. Same with companies. And I was listening to somebody's interview about the airline industry in India, and the person said, there is this group that is thinking about freight because that's more important than passenger travel right now. And and they're really redefining themselves in the short term as a freight business. So I think that kind of flexibility, is important to both come out stronger. And by the way, in this process, they would find that they are able to look at cost structures in different ways that makes them a better airline when they do come out to be normal through this experience. So I think coming out stronger, trying out completely different ideas that are really driven by the current crisis where your customers need you could just redefine who you are. As far as Amazon goes, we are really hopeful that an idea like local shops would help the local stores redefine themselves from being either an offline store or a corner store to just be a place that serves customers, no matter where the customers are. And I feel that that kind of embracing the technology might just completely leapfrog the whole idea of whether something is online and offline to being a customer obsessed business. We are very optimistic that manufacturers might just embrace things like global selling and just redefine themselves as global brands because they would think of this as a great opportunity for them to serve the whole world, not just India, as they think about dealing with the constraint of lower footfalls in India for the short term. So I think there are constraints, there are challenges, but there are opportunities hidden in those challenges. And I feel the people who would actually look out for those opportunities, embrace them, accept the normal, but be resilient, embrace the opportunity, go after it, at the end of the day will come out significantly stronger. And when this all is dusted and done, it would be because we will have a vaccine. So the good news is there is an end date to this. It's not something that we have to live forever. The choices that we make in the next few months are really going to define who we are as individuals, as society, as organization, as business, and as a nation.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you on behalf of Team Mint and the campaign Pivot of Parish. And we wish you and Team Amazon all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, and stay safe and healthy.
So that was Amazon's Amit Agarwal sharing his insight on what businesses can possibly do to tackle the crisis. He said that it's perfectly fine to be misunderstood. We will continue the conversation with our guests here this evening. And on that note, let me bring in Vinay again to take the conversation ahead.
Let me say that we are very glad to have the guests here, and I'm looking forward to a lot of ideas. But let me first go to Meena, and as a serial entrepreneur with a very high risk appetite, I would want to ask her that is this going to be the era of the cautious entrepreneur or the reluctant entrepreneur?
That's a very good question, Vinay. What I'd like to perhaps take one step back and say, all these changes that we are seeing, what does it mean for an entrepreneur? What is the expectation that the board, the investors, and the world as such have from an entrepreneur? How has that changed? And then we'll talk about how is the risk appetite of entrepreneur or of an investor is changing. So if you look at till recently, an entrepreneur has been lauded for their ability to think completely out of the box, for being very aggressive in growth, for growth at all costs, for finding newer and newer horizons to conquer. So literally to be the warrior and Alexander the Great and going and conquering new regions is what the expectation from an entrepreneur is. But that, I think, currently what the crisis that we are facing is obviously showing us a mirror that this is not what we need from an entrepreneur now. So the entrepreneur, the leader, and which I am, and while I may have also be a promoter in a number of other companies, but I lead my company, Portia Medical, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO. So I know from both the perspectives that today the expectation is, in many sectors, is how do you minimize your burn? How do you make sure that you can survive? How do you make sure that as the changes in customer behavior, customers' requirement, environment come about, how do you still remain relevant to the population or to the target audience that you are serving, or are there new target audiences and new solutions that you need to come up with? So the expectation from the entrepreneur has changed drastically, which requires that as an investor, as a board member, you provide appropriate support to the entrepreneur to now learn, in some cases, learn these new skills because they haven't been in this kind of situation. Some of the more seasoned entrepreneurs, I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years and I've gone through cycles, I've gone through companies which ran out of money, I've gone through 9/11, I've gone through 2008, so I've gone through multiple challenges. So some degree of maturity is there, but somebody who's just been on the go kind of a growth path needs to really sit back and say, now what do you do when things don't really go in the growth path? So there's something that all of us have to sit and take a little bit of a breather and say, what is the right thing to do in this kind of new life?
Meena,
Yeah.
if I can come
Go
in.
ahead.
Yes, let me flip Vinay's question. A lot of people are also saying that this is also an opportunity. I mean, the regular, the argument that I face, I hear every day is, the big will only get bigger. Also, is this an opportunity for you? I want you to answer this, and maybe the other panelists can also join in.
Sure.
It's a great.
Absolutely.
There is an opportunity in every crisis, and this should not be no different.
No doubt about that. So I'll talk a little bit from the healthcare sector, what I see as the opportunity. As Kotia Medical, we work in the outside of hospital healthcare. So we are literally working with patients and their families at their homes and provide all kinds of support through either directly to them at their homes or through technology or any other ways in which we can support them. So now suddenly there is a huge change from facility-based care as being the gold standard, and people wanting to go into a facility for each and everything. People are really taking two or three thoughts before they go into a facility because of all that we know. I mean, I don't need to spell out why. It's quite obvious that nobody wants to go to a facility unless there is no other choice. Now, this could lead to a fundamental change in behavior, and we are seeing that already. People are customers, and a lot of other people that I've spoken to talk about their customers are very willing to look at now technology-based healthcare, willing to look at devices at their end, willing to have community-based healthcare, are willing to do, and we are doing some things which you would have never have dreamt. For instance, carrying out chemotherapy administration at home was something that we always felt is something is the ideal, is something you could reach there, and that's something that is a real change in what the customer's behavior is and what the value that they are getting. We are seeing ask for that. We're seeing people actually pushing us to provide them that. So suddenly, in the sector of healthcare, I'm seeing that remote healthcare, digital, technology-led, community-led. These are some things which have come in, which were not absolutely top of the mind in the healthcare sector. The other thing that it also means, while I'm talking about these changes, and it is not something which can be done by an individual company. While I agree, it is a benefit to some of the bigger players, but it's not a single player. It's not a single kind of company that would benefit from this, but it's a consortium that different kinds or different elements of healthcare need to come together and provide the most appropriate solution to the consumer. So yes, absolutely, there are opportunities in this difficult times for sure.
Hari, let me go to you now. I mean, you have seen many ups and downs, inflection points. You are a very seasoned entrepreneur. In many ways, we have seen since 2008 and before that we have managed inflection points, or entrepreneurs have managed inflection points rather well. What were your thoughts, Hari, on when the virus hit us? Did you think that you needed to pivot? Did you think that you needed to overreact, underreact, or do you think that you needed to exercise restraint?
Yeah, frankly, when the virus, first hit, we were the first thing that we were thinking about was safety, right? In the sense that we need to make sure that all of us first get very safe, right? Us meaning us and my entire set of employees, 25,000 of them. And so what do we first do to make sure that happens, right? At that point in time, we had no clue, frankly, on what the impact on business would be, right? All we knew is that people would need food, right, for sure. And there is some way that you would have to, kind of be in there, but we had no clue in what form. So the first thing that hit us was safety. So we quickly reorganized ourselves. Work from home was the first thing that that came to our minds wherever possible, and we actually got to do that very, very early, right? So sometime mid-March, we completely took that call and moved a lot of our stuff to work from home. But however, our operations can't do that, and you can't sit at home and deliver. So we had to just do all of that. And interestingly, 21st, I still remember this. It was crazy. So 21st March was the D-Day. In the evening, we suddenly started getting a whole host of notifications from the government, saying that tomorrow is and of course the Prime Minister spoke a little later that there would be a a semi-lockdown kind of condition tomorrow, and you would have to deliver, right? You're categorized under what's called essential services, and hence you'll have to go out there and actually deliver. So we were actually pretty thrilled, and we were just hoping that something like that happens. We had no clue. But then I will not go into the whole bit that actually what happened. People were so charged. We actually rallied people on that Saturday evening. Actually, frankly, I myself got on to speaking to each of my regional heads, got them to speak to everybody, saying, coming tomorrow to work, right? In spite of all this worries that we have, is national pride, right? And it's almost like a duty that I think you must all take on yourselves, because while the country is going to kind of shut down that day, you are going to be out there, delivering groceries to people. People are panicking. People are worried. People are wondering what's going to happen. Unbelievable. People just rallied actually. And at 6 in the morning on that Sunday, 22nd, we had one of our best attendance. Right? Everybody just came to the warehouse, and said, "This is a great moment," and it was so nice to see that. What happened for 4 hours after that was sad, actually, and that is where, frankly, at one point, 2 days later, frankly, all of us in our management team didn't know what could happen to us, right? And we absolutely had no clue on whether we would ever recover from what we saw over those 3 days. Actually, what happened was people went out. There was that communication didn't go to the ground. A lot of our people, there were atrocities. They got beaten up. In addition to the fear that was there, and in about 2 hours on that Sunday, we were pretty much shut, right? Because everybody had to be called back, because people on the ground wouldn't let us deliver, in spite of very, very clear instructions from the government. And that evening, actually, people clapped for us. People actually, clapped for health workers, clapped for delivery boys and stuff like that. And I was just looking back and saying, hey, this is what happened during the day. And 23rd, 24th, 80% of our people went away. 80% of the workforce went away, because that time the borders were open, because the lockdown was announced on 25th. So that window of 23rd, 24th, they went away. And that was a moment which was scary, right? Frankly, absolutely scary. We were down to 20% of our workforce, down to, just about somehow delivering 25,000 orders from a peak of 150,000 orders. Frankly, I had no clue on what's going to happen next. Absolutely no clue. Well, what happened was a very different story. I think the way the government kind of reacted, absolutely outstanding. Outstanding, I must say. Because, they got us up and running in 2 days flat. 2 days flat. All that we were doing is sitting in meetings with very, very senior people, including the ministers sitting there and taking decisions across the board. Across the board. And they would take a decision and it would get implemented in a few hours. And that was just outstanding. And we scaled after that, so there was no looking back. Extremely scary, uncertain, 15th March to 31st March. Frankly, I didn't know what's going to happen to our business.
So, Hari, here is a quick question for you. We love our customers a lot, and we also love our employees. And maybe our love for customers is probably slightly more than our love for employees. We do see the tilt happening now where that the love for employees also goes up more than probably the love for customers. Do you see that?
First of all, we never saw it that way, right? For us, our customers and employees, have always been at a similar level, because if you don't have happy, good employees, no matter what you want to do with your customers is not going to work, right? So you need to keep them at the same level. You can't distinguish that. However, yes, of course, we all say customer is king, customer is important, and stuff like that, and tend to kind of display larger passion or love for them. Frankly, it's not changed too much, except the fact that safety, as far as employees are concerned, was very, very important. The important thing is it's not customer versus employee; it is employee versus business, right? And that is where we made a big difference, and we were very clear in every communication of mine to the region, starting from March and even as of yesterday, is that one communication that went across clearly is that your safety is more important to us than business, right? If there is somebody falling sick, if there is somebody, showing symptoms, taking care of you is more important rather than delivering the order which you would have done that day. And that was a clear message. So the difference was that it was safety versus business and not safety versus customer. Because the customer, we would always go back and make sure that he's informed, he's told, and customers understand, at the end of the day, right? Because you're going through a pandemic, you're going through a crazy situation, which is why customers don't want urgent deliveries anymore. All they want is a good delivery, which means a delivery with high fill rate. They're willing to wait. They're saying, just make sure you deliver what we order. Just make sure you deliver quality to us. And that's more important. As against wanting it in 1 hour and express and faster and slower and all that. So customers understand, right? And so getting back to customers was, so to me, it was prioritizing the employee over business. And that continues today. And that was more important to us.
No, very, very interesting points there, Hari. So let's, on that note, lot of these things possible. I'm sure you have your own backend, but for many companies, it's the guys like delivery who make the business possible, in times like this. Mohit, how was your experience in this whole situation?
Our experience, I just wanted to say, what Ravi mentioned, right? I would echo his thought is that, the trajectory was very simple, right? Was very similar that we had. 25th, the lockdown started, right? And at that time, basically, all our facilities were stuck.
Challenging time. So were there things that you had to do differently to make things happen?
That has also evolved over the period. Right? So the first thing that we had to do was that, while most of our network pre-lockdown is essential commodity, right? Whether it's with pharma, we probably pharma companies and FMCG companies in the matter of a week to understand where their cold boxes, creating those cold boxes to move vaccines across the country, right? For critical supplies, with a lot of FMCGs basically unorganized, right? So when stuff goes to the distributor and from distributor basically were completely shut, right? So the FMCG supplies even to the retailer were basically becoming a bigger bottleneck, right? That stuff out to the retailers, right? Not again something that we were doing earlier, but again retooled our network to actually cater to those guys, right? So it was not just about e-commerce, but basically other sectors and how do you help them. Within e-commerce, for example, pharmacy, their basically demands were very high, and pharmacies were not equipped to right now manage that kind of order volume. Right? For that 1 month of entire April, right, we were the only B2C logistics company which are operating across the country, right? So how do you actually move medicines basically for those pharma companies and vaccines also, or for example insulin for them, which required some sort of cold storage or ambient temperature, right, across cities. So retold the network to actually cater to those kind of things. And now actually when things have settled down more from a basic requirement perspective, I think most of April was basically consumed by ensuring that, pharmacy items and FMCG essentials are moving across the country, right? That is where basically a big part of our focus was to rebuild the network, right? Now it's more about, how do you get more of these non-essential commodities also to the customer doorstep, right? As everybody is talking about, right? That now e-commerce is going to be the go-to for everything that we need, right? People will prefer basically that things get delivered to their home as much as possible, right? And one fundamental shift that we are seeing now is that instead of, and Amit also spoke about it briefly, is that apart from the traditional marketplace and warehouse model where you basically create a reach across the country, right? There is a lot of local demand now which is coming in where you need to fulfill them locally, right? So hyperlocal delivery is becoming a sort of a bigger sort of a part of our business now, right? So how do you do 2 hour, 4 hour, 6 hour same day delivery, hyperlocal delivery at a cost which is basically viable for the retailer also, right? How do you do more local shipping? So retooling the network, retooling the tech infrastructure to actually basically be able to get to do that, right? So that is becoming also important pivot for us now going forward, right? Not just with retailers, but working directly with FMCG companies to reach out to their consumers or to retail shops across.
Amar, let me draw you into the conversation. I mean, was this a big inflection point for you? What happened at the end of March? Do you think it's going to influence your business in any way? I mean, or is it a blip which you think we have kind of overcome?
Vinay, we do believe this is an inflection point for e-commerce. This is not just a blip, but it can be a blip if we don't actually act on how do we make e-commerce more relevant to the consumers. For a very long time, e-commerce followed a certain model. While the consumer is at the center of every product thinking we've ever did, more than ever, the consumer-centric thought process has to be much more prevalent than it was ever before, especially when the e-commerce always came with a set of apprehension in terms of, especially in terms of fashion. It's an area where most of our consumer base was not comfortable trying a new brand, new style, even though they are the consumers. Forget about the non-customers of the e-commerce. Even the consumers who were already shopping online had their apprehensions buying a different brand, different style, because it always comes with a size and fit issue. We don't know how. I mean, the size chart is not standard between the brands. The information is not detailed enough between the brands. So there are many things. Now, those apprehensions are overshadowed by the safety and the health concerns of, or the inhibition or the apprehension of going out to a mass shopping area at this moment. And this is the time when we need to actually step up our game on how do we augment some of the behaviors that were demonstrated in the offline space. Like, in fact, we have expedited a lot of our investments we've been doing for a long time. Size and Fit is one big example. We've been in the business for the last 10 years, and more than any other retailer, kind of fashion consumption data we have is good enough for us to actually start working on this model. We've been working on these models. In fact, it's been a pilot on the platform for the last 4 to 5 months. We've expedited some of these investments where we can give the confidence to consumer that this is the size you should be trying in this new brand, new style, even when we don't have a previous purchase information of that consumer in that brand style. Coming to the supply chain side of things, the way we've actually been rethinking our supply chain during this time. In fact, what we've done in the last few weeks of how to make the whole process a contactless process. In fact, we were one of the first to say that we will not ring the doorbell. We took away the need for signature. We got the contactless payment, the UPI-based payment method, where people don't have to get in contact with our delivery guy. And this is actually going back to the earlier question you asked about who do you put first, is the employee or the consumer. My answer has always been, and this is one of the first things I answered to my organization also. There is one more set of people that we need to be responsible for, which is our vendors and partners. So for us as a business, for us as an organization, employees, our consumers, and our partners are equally important. And we don't believe we can be successful by prioritizing one over the other. It has to come together. And the way we've been working with all the three parties, when we are one of the first companies to go into work from home, and we've been working from home for most of the organization ever since, except the critical functions which have to have a physical presence in the locations are the only ones. And even in those locations, the amount of the rigor we have put into the SOP, the SOPs we have right now in terms of social distancing norms, in terms of all the local innovations we made on how do we keep people hygiene, safe, and more importantly, how do they get back home safe. It's not just about their time in our facility, it's also about their commute time. In terms of our consumers, we did a proactive communication during the first lockdown that sorry, we won't be able to deliver your products and you're free to cancel your orders. And you will be surprised, 91% of them said no, keep it the way it is, and we will wait for our orders. That also gave us the confidence that we've built loyalty over a period of time, and there is a need or there is a demand that is not going to die down anytime. With respect to our partners, there are a lot of small, medium businesses who uh, do business on our platform. We are a curated marketplace at the end of the day. And we also have a quite extensive network of delivery boys. We call it a Mensa partner. Again, I don't know how much you're familiar about this network. This is a network of small, medium businesses, these kirana stores, mom and pop stores, who also do deliveries for us during their downtime. Unfortunately, during the lockdown time, their primary business was also shut, and we didn't have any deliveries for them to earn any money. So we are probably one of the first organizations, if not the only organization, which advanced the payment to them, to our partners. They kind of got a payroll advance so that they can survive this downtime. In addition to that, we also got them COVID insurance, which was anyway given to all our employees. So we extended it to our partners in the small medium businesses. So the amount of effort or the amount of investment we made into all these things, the only reason behind that is we need to safeguard our employees, we need to recover our business, and we need to reimagine the business. Going back to your first the question that you asked, we believe is an inflection point, and we believe all these steps that we are making today will actually help us come out of this stronger. And the way we actually see this going forward is, I know a lot of people have been talking about post-COVID, but I do believe that we are going to be in the COVID world for a very, very long time. And that's how we are seeing the business. And in that COVID world, the digital business has a bigger role to play, and we are actually fortunate to be well positioned to play that role in this country right now.
No, I mean very valid points. Very valid points, Amar. I'm curious. Of course, we are all doing our basic hygiene checks, making sure our employees are fine, our supply chains are fine. How are we dealing with consumer behavior? For example, I'm curious to know if now with the lockdowns being extended, are you focusing more on say homeware instead of high fashion, which has traditionally been your key focus area? Are you doing these kind of things, these innovations?
Sure. So actually, let me take you guys to the day Hari was mentioning about the day before the lockdown was announced. We were already in work from home mode by then. We didn't know what was the kind of impact that was coming to the business. When the lockdown was announced, by then we were already deep into protecting our employees, making sure they're all safe. Wherever they are, some of them were traveling, so we made sure all those employees are back to their home places or whatever place they call home when they're close with their relatives and whatever we could do as an organization. Very quickly, we realized that we don't have much bigger role to play in this lockdown when the focus is actually on the essential. And the one question that I was getting from the organization is there something we can do? Is there something we can do? And Hari, I don't know many people know this. We were this close to actually launching grocery on Mintra because we thought it's something we can do at this time. And then we realized our friends at Big Basket and Flipkart are doing a better job than us, and let's not get into it. But when we started actually looking at how our own employees in our FCs were having a hard time getting the mask, protective gear, that's when we realized if a company of this size is having a hard time getting this equipment, what about consumers? So we quickly partnered with all the brands, starting with the Wildcraft to every major brand in the country right now, be it Alan Solly, be it UCB, I mean, you name it. Everybody stepped in and started making masks and protective equipment. And we restarted our business with protective equipment. And the way we actually served it, and in fact, Mohit and team helped us a lot during those times. Delivery was our delivery partner, where we could actually get this mask out there to the demand. And very quickly we realized the way people are spending their time at home and spending their time in front of a computer doing their work is changing. It's much different from the way it was before. And there is much bigger need for this new thing called fashion essential. Your loungewear, your athleisure wear, your leisure wear. Again, we reached out to the partners. And our partners, like always, have been very, very supportive, to help us with the supply. And we came up with the work from home essentials. We came up with fashion essentials, which also gave us some kind of runway for us to stay relevant. And also during this time, one of the things that our teams have done a phenomenal job of transforming Mintra into a content destination. We put out a lot of content on the Mintra platform about how you can actually stay fit at home, how you can, it's a do it DIY videos about how you can apply beauty products, how you can take care of kids, how you can do yoga, a lot of stuff. And we have a lot of influencers on the platform. We have celebrities who've always been working with Mintra. They've also put out a lot of content on the platform. And the kind of engagement we saw, our traffic was quickly up to half of what it was during one of the best days in February, especially when we had nothing to offer in terms of fashion. It was just essential. And the amount of time that was being spent on the platform was almost same as what it was pre-COVID. So people were very engaged with this content, which also gave us confidence that based on all of these data signals, we realized that this is what users are expecting from us. We quickly kind of gave that information to our brands, our in-house brands to act on it. And now we've been operational for the last 4 days with the new relaxations coming in. And there is so much of pent-up demand in the country. And we've been very busy in the last 4 days and happy to be busy. You can't even complain. I mean, it's not going to complain. We're happy to be busy. And, and yeah, it's been it's been a very educating journey for us more than anything.
So, hearing all of you and understanding that all of you were kind of experienced the inflection point, here's what I would like to ask, and anyone in the panel can answer this. Is the era of Jugaad over? Are we only going to now talk of pivot, not Jugaad? Amar?
Quickly validating your thought process or your solution. I think what is fundamentally changing right now is you don't have to search for a problem statement. The problem statements are quite obvious right in front of you, and the kind of uncertainty we are seeing and the kind of chaos that we are in right now, all of this actually breeds opportunity. Chaos always bred opportunity, and this is no different. And if we act on this opportunity, and this is the time for the organizations to bear the time and cost to correct themselves and question the traditional way of doing things. I can speak on behalf of fashion industry. For a very long time, the leaders in the fashion industry have been talking about how their traditional way of manufacturing is not beneficial, both financially and even for the environment. I mean, there's a seasonal way of manufacturing fashion, and that happens like 6 months before or even 8 months before the season really hits the market, with almost no input from the market or the consumer feedback, which is the reason why there is a 30 to 40% of overproduction happening in fashion industry today. If you can imagine, this is a $2.5 trillion market. I mean, $2.5 trillion industry, and 30 to 40% of overproduction going into landfill, financially and more importantly, and not environmental friendly. And when this pandemic hit us, it actually hit us in the month of February, which is considered to be a fashion month, especially in Europe. So most of the brands could not order from the runway shows on what they should be ordering for the next year. It gave the time for them to take a pause to relook at how the fashion can course correct the way it has been manufacturing things. We don't have to overproduce. We can actually produce on demand, which is where players like us can help our brands. And that's exactly what happened in the last 6 to 7 weeks. We saw the demand for masks, we reached out to the brand. We saw the demand for fashion essentials, we reached out to the brand. None of those brands are sitting with excess inventory right now because we were not only helping them with what needs to be made, we were also helping them how much to make. And this is what a future of a fashion industry could be. And I believe this is same for every industry. This pandemic did not leave any industry on its way. So that's what I believe.
So we have reached the concluding part of this webinar. I would like to thank all of you, and we're proud to have you. As a journalist, I would specifically want to thank all the entrepreneurs, because when we do stories, we realize that the only guys who have a better idea what the future is going to be like are the entrepreneurs, because they put their money and life on it. So just follow the entrepreneur. Thank you for guiding us, journalists, and being here on the Pivot or Perish webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank
Pleasure,
you.
man.